What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and it is Sunday Fun Day, which means today we are going to be talking about the cards that TCG Player has sent to us and said, listen, you all need to be paying attention to these because these are the cards that have spiked the most in price on our website over the last 7 days. And I think this is incredibly impactful information. But what we're going to do today, before we get to those cards, because listen, there's some really awesome cards on this list, but there's also a couple that have me scratching my head. So we're going to do something a little bit similar to what we did last week. And we're actually going to take a step back in time. And one of my favorite things that we have the ability to do here on this channel is because I do a PowerPoint presentation for every video that I make for you all, we can insert ourselves into different moments of time in the Pokemon hobby from the past. So I've been focusing a lot in this series on February of 2025. And that is because that is when we saw a lot of illustration rare Scarlet and Violet singles cards really start to spike up in price. And now the beauty of that is because we saw that back then and because I have these PowerPoint presentations, and now we have 8 months worth of actual records of data and how the prices have moved since then, we can not only go back and see some similarities between what was happening then to what is happening now, but we actually have real results. We have 8 months worth of price movements from those first spikes we saw in February, and we can compare them to what we're seeing today. Now, as I always say, I don't have a crystal ball. Just because a pattern has happened in the past is certainly no, golden rule that it's going to repeat itself again in the future. But I think when we look at the similarities, and I think when we look at how, just the same types of cards and the same types of artwork, we're starting to see these price spikes again. Again, listen, if you love the card, if you love the artwork, if you love the Pokemon, go ahead and buy whatever makes your heart happy. But at the end of the day, I know how hard you work for your money. I know how hard I work for mine. And that is why I want to give all of us a little bit of a cautionary tale and take lessons from the past and apply them to the present. That way we have some idea of what might happen in the future. So before I get into that, listen, I got to give my selfish plug here early in the video. We're getting close to 25,000 subscribers, so everyone counts. And listen, if you enjoy the video, if you have fun, if you like having the ability to take a step back in time with me, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So as you can see right here, this is the biggest price spikes in Pokemon this week, and you can see that in terms of cards. We're missing some of the big name Pokemon that we have seen here in the past. So last week, this is what I did. I took us back to February 5th, the week of February 5th of this year. And as I said back then in last week's video, I said, listen, we had some cards on that video that were really spiking in price, which kind of like what we're going to see today in some of these cards, maybe not the biggest names in the Pokemon space. And this is exactly what all three of those cards were doing from a price perspective back on the week of February 5th of this year. And now, since we have 8 months worth of hindsight, let's see what has happened to those prices ever since. Boom, 1 has never recovered. Boom, 2 has never recovered. And boom, 3 has never recovered. And again, I'm not saying that the patterns will repeat themselves, but these are things that I think all of us should be aware of. And then I decided, let's look at the very next week. So now we're looking at February 11th, right? So we're going 1 week further, and we saw the same thing. Again, from an artwork perspective, really cool cards, you know what I'm saying? So if people are into that, absolutely go out and buy them. But again, these are 2 examples from just the very next week, and this is the same thing. Neither of these cards had ever recovered ever since those irrational spikes. So again, this is just my cautionary tale. I want you all to really enjoy the hobby, and sometimes if you go out there and you get caught up in these FOMO moments, and then you really get caught on that backslide on the back end, people can lose a little bit of joy and they can feel bad about it, and I don't want that to happen to any of you out there. So the next thing we're going to look at is this. This is kind of what spun it up, okay? The Palpitoad card was featured this week on the list of cards that have been, spiking in price the most on TCG Player. And as you can see, this thing has rocketed up from a $7 card all the way up to a $24 card. And you can see those light blue bars that go up and down. Those represent sales volume. So you can see over the last week or so, huge increase in sales volume. And you can see that the price has spiked very, very high there as well. And, is this a $24 card? Well, the only people who determine that are you and me and the rest of the collectors out there. There's nothing else that determines the price of these cards besides our buying and selling activity. And that is why I think it's so incredibly important to understand how similar cards have performed in the past. So again, I thought this was a very interesting one to be featured this week. It is up 193% over the last 3 months. But if you look at the graph right there, really almost all of those gains have come in the last 7 days. So is this a $25 card into the future? Is this going to grow to a $50 card? Is this going to be one that you can set aside and have huge gains in? Well, that's for the rest of us to decide, but I do think this one is eerily similar to a lot of the cards that we had looked at in these previous slides. Now, the next one that is going to be on here, everybody is talking about this card right here, and obviously, I get what's going on. You know, we have seen certain cards like the Seismitoad really spike in value because the artist of the Seismitoad card is the exact same one as the Magikarp from Paldea Evolved, exact same one as the Giratina from Lost Origin, and the artist for the Solosis card right here, like this is the same artist that did the Bubble Mew. However, I'm just going to say it flat out, like you cannot compare this card to the Bubble Mew in any way, shape, or form. The character is not the same, the set is not the same, like as far as I am concerned. You know, this is really grasping at straws. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the future, we're going to see that particular artists will command a significant premium over other artists. It's just not something we've seen in the past. And as I always say, just because it hasn't happened in the past doesn't mean it can't happen in the future. But I mean, when you compare this to the Bubble Mew, I think the Bubble Mew art is infinitely better. Obviously, Mew is a much more popular Pokemon than Solosis here. And so at least we're starting to see the price come down. Again, that light blue bar graph, excuse me, that popped all the way up. Somebody or a group of somebodies went on there and bought a ton of them in one fell swoop. So it got all the way up to like a $65 price point. At least we're seeing the price come back down. So maybe we're getting to some semblance of normalcy here for the card, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The next one that was featured this week, same thing, you know, the exact same artist that we just saw. This is the Clobbopus right here. And again, exact same pattern. You can see that light blue bar graph really shoot up. Matter of fact, it looks like over 250 copies of this particular card was bought in a very short period of time, which spiked it all the way up to a near $20 price point. Now it's sitting at $13, so it's come down significantly from that $20 price point. But again, you're still looking at a card which not long ago was sub $5. It is up 229% versus that $5 mark. Again, I always think about the long term. Think about 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Like if you're buying and holding these cards, is there going to be a huge, you know, a huge demand or a huge, you know, I don't know, desire to have a Clobbopus card in your collection 15 years from now? Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. But the thing that I like about these first two cards that we've highlighted is they did have these heavy spikes, but at least we're starting to see them come back down already. So very interesting takeaway. And who knows what's going to happen? Maybe artists really will be able to drive prices here in the future in the Pokemon space. Now, we're going to start talking about some really cool cards, and this one has me all kinds of excited. I was unsure as to how the market would react to these gold mega hyper rare cards coming out of the new Mega Evolution series, right? But this Mega Lucario right here is all the way up to $718. And I did a video the other day where we talked about pull rates in Mega Evolution, and I talked about how I think that is going to make Phantasmal Flames just, it's already ridiculous what the prices are going for, but I think it is just going to astronomically inflate those prices because the odds of pulling this card is about 1 in every 2,500 packs. To put that in perspective, the odds of pulling the Moonbreon was about 1 in every 1,994 packs. So the odds of pulling this one is infinitely worse than the Moonbreon. And when you copy the fact that you could have the exact same terrible pull rates, possibly paired with a Charizard card in Phantasmal Flames, add on the fact that obviously the market loves these cards because it started off as like a $540 card and now it's all the way up over $700. When you put all of those factors together, it gets me incredibly excited. So I'm very, very excited to see the performance of this card. I think this card is really awesome, but what it really gets me fired up for is what might happen in the months ahead when we start seeing Phantasmal Flames hit the shelves. Now, the next card that's on here is this Mega Gardevoir, and again, another card that has me very, very excited about all of these Mega Series sets that we have coming out. This was a card, in all transparency, if you saw my set review for Mega Evolution, like this was a card that I had on my buy list. I think my kids would absolutely love this card. The artwork is stunning. I love the way you have the grays and the pinks and the greens kind of contrasting with each other. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, it's going to come out. This will be like a $150, $200 card, something like that, which is a ton of money for a Pokemon card. But I thought maybe I'd be able to get one. This thing is at $323 and holding. It is incredible to see this card come out with such a high price point and at least for now be able to maintain that price point. So again, I just cannot say it enough how bullish and how excited I am for these Mega Series sets. And who knows, $330 is a ton of money for a Pokemon card. So I'm going to sit on the sidelines for this one for a little bit, see if maybe as more packs are ripped and more of these start hitting the secondary market, if we see that traditional Pokemon pop and flop where the price starts to come back down a little bit on it, maybe it'll drop in time for Christmas. It would be a very expensive Christmas present, but again, it's a long-term collectible for the family that we can all enjoy, so we'll just have to see what happens with that in the long run. Now, the next one and the final one here is, listen, I love this card from an artwork perspective. I have been a huge fan of this ever since this set was released, and the Ceruledge right here, I think it's really, really cool. Now, the interesting thing here is we're starting to see a lot of these cards cards from the set really start to pop off, right? And this one, again, in the terms of percentage, Ceruledge here is only up about 16.5% over the last 3 months, but what you can see is that dollar amount starts off at about $94, then the price was working its way down. Now it's all starting to pop back up again. So when you think about it, Prismatic Evolutions, like this is a set I have been very, very bullish on for a very long time. I think this is going to be the set overall of the Scarlet and Violet era. Obviously, Destined Rivals is going to be the regular series set. But I think just an overall average of the top 20 singles cards, the price of the sealed product in time, like Prismatic Evolutions, I think is going to be it. So seeing this card pop off in price over the last week gets me very, very excited. So that's it. We normally do 5 cards. This week we did 6, and we were able to do a little look back in time. And so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And most importantly, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're able to get your hands on out there. It is a crazy time in the hobby. I just want you to enjoy it. And I have a strong feeling that there is a lot of good times ahead of us here with this Mega Series set. So have an epic rest of your day. I appreciate you more than I can say, and I'll talk to you later. See you, everybody. Bye.